These are the headlines we're following at this hour. President Yoon departs for San Francisco today to attend the APEC Summit. He will seek cooperation on supply chain and trade. Yoon will also deliver a joint speech with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and could sit down with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Much attention is on the sidelines of the APEC Summit that will see a meeting between U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping. And ahead of the summit, Biden said Washington is not looking to decouple from China, but to improve relations. Now, with less than a day to go until South Korea's infamous college entrance exam, more than 500,000 students will be taking the Suneung after years of preparation. What do students need to keep in mind before the big day? Good afternoon. President Yoon departs for San Francisco today to attend the APEC Summit. The South Korean leader will seek cooperation on supply chain and trade. He will also deliver a joint speech with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and could sit down with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Our Kim Do-yeon has the details.
Amid crises and challenges, from the conflict between Israel and Hamas and the war in Ukraine to climate change and supply chain disruptions, President Yoon Suk-yeol embarks on a mission to boost South Korea's status as a global pivotal state as he heads on Wednesday to San Francisco for the APEC Summit.
저는 세계 GDP의 60% 이상을 차지하는 회원국의 정상들이 한데 모이는 이번 회의에서 공급망 다변화와 무역 투자 확대와 같이 우리 경제에 실질적으로 보탬이 되는 협력 방안을 논의할 것입니다.
As soon as he lands, before he starts his official diplomatic events, he's set to meet over lunch with local Koreans and people of Korean descent, a customary schedule that he has kept for most of his overseas trips. His first event related to the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation is the APEC CEO Summit, a business forum run by the chairing country, the U.S. At that summit, Yoon will give a keynote speech. He then will attend a reception for the leaders and end his first day in San Francisco by meeting young leaders in technology. The official working sessions for APEC will start on Thursday under the theme of creating a resilient and sustainable future for all. Laying out South Korea's role in global cooperation, Yoon will attend the meetings and offer support to countries vulnerable to climate change. He'll also emphasize the need for multilateral efforts to strengthen supply chains and establish digital ethical standards amid the rapid evolution of artificial intelligence. Amid a series of APEC meetings, Yoon's sideline meetings with other leaders are also noteworthy. First, he's set to attend a summit of the U.S.-led Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, also known as IPEF. He's also set to meet his Japanese counterpart Fumio Kishida and jointly deliver a speech at Stanford University. With a sideline summit between U.S. President Joe Biden and China's Xi Jinping, there is also a possibility that a sideline meeting between Yoon and Xi could happen. In terms of regional security, President Yoon has said that during the APEC summit, he will bring up the arms exchanges between North Korea and Russia to emphasize what this really means to global security. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Much attention is on the sidelines of the APEC Summit that will see a meeting between U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping. Ahead of the summit, Biden said Washington is not looking to decouple from China, but to improve relations. An Sung-jin reports.
U.S. President Joe Biden spoke to the press before taking off for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in San Francisco on Wednesday. And in response to the question of what he is hoping to get out of discussions with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping, Biden emphasized normalized relations between the two countries.
As I told you, we're not trying to decouple from China, but what we're trying to do is change the relationship for the better.
This comes as U.S. officials work to restore military communication, especially with ongoing issues surrounding the One China principle on Taiwan and U.S. support for the Philippines in the conflict in the South China Sea. However, Biden also warned that despite efforts to stabilize the relationship, the U.S. would not give in to China's zero-sum diplomacy, as seen with past U.S. restrictions on exports of chips to China.
But I'm not going to continue to sustain the support for positions where if we want to invest in China, we have to turn over all our trade secrets.
The meeting in San Francisco will be their first face-to-face in a year. White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby said that as President Biden focuses on current issues, he will be discussing the Israel-Hamas conflict and hoping to persuade Xi to use his influence in Iran to prevent Tehran from stoking tensions in the region further. Russia's invasion of Ukraine as well as economic issues between the two countries will also be high on the agenda. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Staying on the APEC Summit, top diplomats of South Korea, the U.S. and Japan agreed on close cooperation on a range of issues, including Russia and North Korea's military ties, which they see as a threat to regional and international security. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji has more.
South Korea's Foreign Minister Park Jin met with his U.S. and Japanese counterparts in San Francisco on Tuesday local time and stressed the importance of trilateral cooperation.
The rules-based international order is facing multiple challenges in this poly-crisis era. Strengthening cooperation among like-minded countries is more important than ever, which is why the three of us are here.
He added that the three countries' national security advisors are expected to meet at the inaugural Indo-Pacific Dialogue. Japan's foreign minister also said Tokyo seeks to work together with Seoul and Washington, as the global challenges they face demand a higher level of strategic coordination.
I would like to work together with both of you to uphold the free and open international order based on the rule of law, as well as to aim for a world caring for human dignity.
And the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said there's much work to do.
But events in the Middle East, shared economic cooperation, shared growth, addressing the security implications of the DPRK, Russia military cooperation, and a number of regional and global issues, including our ongoing support for Ukraine. These and more are on our agenda together.
During Tuesday's meeting, Seoul's foreign ministry said the three officials decided to closely cooperate to respond to the military ties between North Korea and Russia, a matter that they agreed is a serious threat to the Korean peninsula, as well as international peace and security. Pyongyang is believed to have provided Moscow with weapons and ammunition to use in Russia's war against Ukraine, in exchange for technology for its nuclear and missile programs. As for the situation in the Middle East, the three officials condemned the Hamas militant group's attack on Israel and called for an immediate release of hostages. They also agreed to work together to resolve the humanitarian crisis in the region. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
The U.S. State Department has approved a potential sale to South Korea of advanced SM-6 missiles aimed at intercepting North Korean missile or air threats. According to the Pentagon on Tuesday, the State Department has approved the sale of some $650 million of Standard Missile 6 Block 1 missiles that was requested by the South Korean government. The SM-6 can directly track targets with its own radar at a maximum range of more than 400 kilometers. It can intercept airplanes, ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles. The U.S. also approved the sale of these missiles to Japan last year. The final approval requires a congressional vote. North Korea says it has developed a new type of high-thrust solid fuel engine for intermediate-range ballistic missiles. According to the North Korean media on Wednesday, ground jet tests on the new engine were successfully conducted this week. The report said tests on the first stage and the second stage of engines took place on November 11th and 14th, respectively, referring to the test's important strategic significance. Pyongyang says the latest test is an essential step toward enhancing the strategic offensive power of the regime amid unstable conditions on the Korean peninsula. Now, over in Gaza, the healthcare crisis is worsening at the Al-Shifa hospital amid Israeli attacks. As international criticism rises, Washington backed Israel, saying Hamas is using Gaza's main hospital to run its military operations. Lee Seung-jae has more.
The White House on Tuesday said it has intelligence indicating that Hamas is using Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza to run its military operations, supporting Israel's initial claims. Speaking to reporters on board Air Force One, White House's national security spokesperson John Kirby said that Hamas has stored weapons at the hospital, adding that using the hospital for military operations is a war crime. Hamas says the claims are untrue. With the surrounding area the scene of intense fighting in the past week, the hospital suffering from energy shortages and dwindling supplies, the Gaza Health Ministry says at least 32 patients, including 3 premature babies, died over the weekend. As the Israeli military continues to seize key Hamas facilities during ground offensives in the Gaza Strip, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant declared that it has completely taken control of northern Gaza. Gallant added that no place will be safe for Hamas until Israel's mission is complete and they bring back all the hostages taken by the Palestinian militant group. Israel also said it had successfully taken over Hamas's parliament building, other government buildings, military and police offices, and intelligence bureau. And as the Israeli forces advance to the center of Gaza City, the IDF says it has found large weapons caches and explosives at many civilian sites, including at mosques and Al-Quds University in Gaza City. Meanwhile, the US and the UK announced a fresh round of sanctions on Tuesday targeting Hamas. The US's third round of sanctions this time targets key Hamas officials. It also targets mechanisms through which Iran provides support for Hamas and its ally Palestinian Islamic Jihad. The UK, on the other hand, sanctioned 4 Hamas senior leaders and 2 financiers, including the militant group's political leader in Gaza and the commander of its military arm. The sanctions aim to cut off funding for Hamas following its deadly attack on Israel last month. 이승재, Arirang News.
Now there is 1 day left until South Korea's college entrance exam. More than 500,000 students will be taking the so-called Suneung, an exam they have spent years preparing for and could decide their future. Our Yoon tells more about the big day.
On Wednesday, some 504,588 students preparing to take the annual college admissions exam can visit their test site and confirm their elective test subjects. The exam, that is seen as deciding students' futures, will be conducted on Thursday across 1,279 test centers, which are normally designated high schools or middle schools. According to the Ministry of Education, not only is there a significant decrease in the number of registered test takers this year at 3,442 less than last year, but only 64.7% of the test takers are high school seniors. Rather, 31.7% are retaking the exam, marking the highest proportion of retakes in 28 years. The testing centers will open at 6:30 a.m. on Thursday, and students can enter until 10 minutes past 8 a.m. This is the 4th Suneung exam since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, but the first where no virus prevention rules will be implemented and all students at a venue will be taking the exam in the same room. But the Education Ministry has recommended that anyone confirmed to have the virus should wear a K94 mask and anyone with symptoms should wear a K80 mask. The ministry added that test takers who have the virus should eat lunch in a separate area. All test takers must enter their designated testing centers with their exam identification slip and official form of identification. To avoid confusion or mishaps on the morning of the exam, students are strongly recommended to check the location of their test center on the previous day. The only items that students are allowed to bring into the exam are black computer marking pens, white correction tape, a black mechanical pencil and extra 0.5mm lead, and an eraser. Those that wish to use a watch may wear an analog watch that doesn't have a Bluetooth function, including communication and payment functions, and doesn't have an LCD or LED display. And all electronic devices are prohibited. This includes all mobile phones, smart devices, earphones with Bluetooth functions, electronic dictionaries or calculators, as well as electronic cigarettes. With just 1 day left until the 2023 Suneung exam, students are recommended to limit consumption of caffeinated drinks and to get a good night's sleep to be in their best condition. 이은진, Arirang News.
South Korea's shipbuilding industry has been thriving despite the global economic slowdown. The government is seeking to give it a further boost by injecting over $500 million that will be used to support its green transition, among others. Our Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
South Korea is ramping up efforts to boost its shipbuilding sector as it seeks to dominate the global market. During an emergency economic meeting on Wednesday, the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy announced that the government will invest around 710 billion Korean won, roughly $544 million in the industry over the next 5 years. The sector makes up around 3% of total manufacturing and exports. Since 2017, South Korea has had a global market share of around 30%. And in October reached its highest order backlog since 2011. While the government says the industry is expected to keep growing, it faces many threats, including a workforce deficit, China's growing shipbuilding industry, and the International Maritime Organization's goal of reducing greenhouse gases and carbon footprint. These problems are set to be tackled in 3 different ways: developing future technology, systemizing the manufacturing process, and in modifying regulations. The government will inject 200 billion won into the commercialization of non-carbon-based fuels, such as liquefied natural gas, ammonia, and hydrogen for use in ships. The southeastern port city of Ulsan will have an area dedicated to supplying eco-friendly fuel and will supply more than a quarter of the fuel demand of domestic ships. The Minister of Oceans and Fisheries stressed the importance of this plan.
Global shipping companies are undergoing large-scale conversions to eco-friendly ships, and the availability of eco-friendly fuel at ports will be necessary for port competitiveness in the future.
A further 150 billion won will be spent on digitalizing and automating the manufacturing process, as well as the employment of 3,000 more workers every year to tackle labor shortages. Revamping the visa policy and increasing quotas for foreign workers, as well as establishing programs to help them adjust to life in South Korea, are also among the solutions proposed. The country's finance minister, Chu Kyung-ho, added that the government will be providing small to medium-sized companies with additional support, such as incentives for going green and incorporating digital technology. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
South Korea saw its biggest number of job additions in October since May last year. But as the number of young adults working continues to decline, the government will strengthen its support with measures like increasing internships and counseling. Park Gun-woo has the details.
South Korea's employment figures rose in October for the 3rd consecutive month. According to Statistics Korea on Wednesday, 346,000 jobs were added on year last month, with the employment rate seeing its biggest jump for any October at 63.3%. This was also the largest addition since May last year. By industry, employment numbers in the wholesale and retail sectors saw a jump of over 10,000, increasing for the first time in 53 months. Figures have been sliding due to structural changes within the industry, such as automated sales points, but numbers surged last month thanks to a tourism boost during the long holiday period in October. Other sectors, including health and social welfare, IT, and accommodation and restaurants, all saw increases in October. But the manufacturing sector, especially electronic components and machinery, saw employment figures drop by 77,000, with the base effect from the 200,000 jobs created the year before a contributing factor. By age, there were over 336,000 workers aged 60 and above compared to the month before, while employment figures for young adults aged 15 to 29 decreased by over 80,000. During an emergency economic ministerial meeting held on Wednesday, the government announced measures to boost employment and encourage young adults to find jobs.
The government will strengthen early support for young adults at each step of school, work and job hunting so that they can find the jobs they want.
The solutions include increases in internship programs for students, counseling for young adults who have just started working, and incentives and consultations for job hunters. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
South Korea's auto exports over the first 10 months of this year have already surpassed last year's total annual exports. According to the Trade Ministry on Wednesday, the value of auto exports over January to October period reached 58 billion US dollars, exceeding last year's record auto exports of $54.1 billion. They have also been this year's export target of 57 billion US dollars. In October alone, the value of exports came to nearly 6 billion US dollars, the highest ever recorded for the month of October. This was down to both a higher demand for eco-friendly cars and a rise in the dollar price of exported vehicles. South Korean boy band 17 delivered a message of solidarity and hope to young people at the UNESCO Youth Forum in Paris. In a first in K-pop history, 17 filled a full one-hour session on Tuesday evening in the main hall at the UNESCO Youth Forum. The group delivered the messages of sharing hopes and dreams, seeking solidarity with young people through conversation and music. After the speech, 17 performed their hit songs, and all 1,220 seats in the main hall were filled with fans and representatives from 173 countries. The UNESCO Youth Forum, held once every 2 years, offers young people the chance to share ideas with others around the world.
Good afternoon. After a chilly start, afternoon highs will finally return to normal this afternoon in most parts of the country. Tomorrow is a Suneung Day, with the college entrance exam taking place nationwide. It will not be very cold on the way to the exam site, but by the time test takers are heading home, they'll need an umbrella and a thicker jacket. Rain is in the forecast in the west in the morning, spreading nationwide by the afternoon, and expect to see 5 to 30 millimeters of showers with thunder and lightning. Now back to today's forecast. The sunny skies are in store nationwide, with highs going a couple of notches higher than Tuesday. Seoul and Chuncheon will see highs at 12 degrees Celsius, Busan topping out at 16 degrees. Then please brace yourselves for a midwinter chill on Friday. Tomorrow's rain will bring a real chill to the country, with a mix of rain and snow expected for most places on Friday. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Hong Kong and Taiwan are among the 21 members of APEC. Though officially listed as Hong Kong, China, and Chinese Taipei, they can still participate in the APEC along with China, because the membership requires being an independent economic entity rather than a sovereign state. That's why it is called APEC member economies rather than countries. That makes the U.S. the host economy for this year. This is why there's no display of flags at the summit, unlike the G20 or BRICS summit. And at the summit, Taiwan will once again be represented by TSMC founder Morris Chang, while Hong Kong by Financial Secretary Paul Chan. All is to avoid any issues with Beijing. That is all for today. Thanks for watching.